Hey everyone. In this session, I wanted to talk about starting. And I just want to also point out our community is growing. It's great to see a lot of passionate entrepreneurs jumping in and helping each other out. I'm noticing that, and it's just fantastic to see. So I just want to make a note and thank everyone for their continued engagement. It's really exciting to see this community that we're building here, and it's going to continue growing, and we're going to continue to help each other. And I just noticed that a lot of people are starting businesses this year, or they've started recently in the past few years, as I'm chatting with more and more business owners. And it's really exciting to see. And probably one of the greatest challenges to building a business is just starting and growing with that initial step. So, part of this community is helping people who are starting to continue to grow and stay motivated and keep growing it and keep finding new clients and whatnot. So that's part of what this community is for, is to foster the growth, encourage you to continue to promote your passions. And if you're not a part of a community like this, then it's important to find people who can kind of hold you accountable and encourage you when things are difficult. So I think that's what's important with finding a community that holds you accountable. And that's the whole point of creating a community and being a part of one and asking questions and helping others. But when you are starting out, helping others is probably the best way to build your clientele. And the way that you can do that is through any number of platforms related to your niche. So if it's not a community like this, maybe it's a community specific to your area. I've noticed some teachers here and people that have educational experience who are trying to teach others what they know and teach others new subjects. And that can always be a challenging one, especially if you're on your own and you're not part of a school network, then that can always be challenging. But if you want to start, a good way is to build courses related to your niche or jumping on platforms such as Upwork. Actually, if you are getting started and maybe you're in the freelancing area, but you want to grow it into a business, then maybe you need that experience. And that's where Upwork comes in. And maybe you don't have a specific area of expertise. Well, then Upwork is a great little place, because then you can find people to help you out on certain projects. Probably anything that you could start and it will be fine, and it will be perfectly possible for you to build whatever it is that you're thinking of. You might be thinking of starting an app, and that's always the biggest challenge is, well, what can I do about building an app? I don't have experience with coding. I don't know how to put an app together. Well, you can find coders, whether it's through Upwork or other platforms, or maybe through your immediate network, through LinkedIn. You can find people who can help you and complement you on certain areas. Maybe it's in this community. So, it's definitely possible to find people to help you start and continue with projects. Over the last several months, I've actually started several projects and also failed on many projects. And I've succeeded on some as well. But what I wanted to do was just immerse myself in every project that I was interested in starting and just getting comfortable with the idea of starting new projects. And I'm very comfortable with it now. And now there's just a few select ones that I'm focusing on and trying to grow those. And that's important when you're just getting started, is to maybe explore all the ideas and put out all of your energies into everything that you want to try, and just try it all and then see what sticks. That's sometimes the best way to really find out what starting project you can continue with. So sometimes when it's difficult for you to figure out what to start with, sometimes it's just best to start with a bunch of things and then narrow it down and continue to narrow it down. As you get into it, you realize this isn't really my thing. I'm going to kill this off and focus on this, right? And as you're starting these projects, it's important that you consider the minimum viable product. So if you're looking at starting all these projects, don't spend a bunch of money on all of them. like really, you don't even need a website. You could start up a Facebook page and say, here's this idea that I have, and let's see if I can get some engagement for it. Or here's a Kickstarter campaign. Let's see if people are interested in this little project that I have. The idea is you actually make $1 before you spend $1. That's important. I got into freelancing and I didn't spend any money until I had my first client. It wasn't until that first client that I realized, okay, maybe I'll hop on a platform, or maybe I'll go on somewhere. But first I wanted to see if I could make money, make that first $1 online, and then I could spend some money on promoting and whatnot. But it was the same with my books. I had some books that I created, and I decided I'm not going to put any money towards promotions. I'm going to see if I can make the first sale. So I hopped on social media and I just talked to people. I found out what people were interested in, and then I thought, okay, here's something that I should share with you. It might be helpful to you, or it might not. But I just went on and I tried to share as much as I could of knowledge and what I knew. So that was a good way to just kind of get my name out there and figure out whether people were interested or not. So when you're starting, start with a very small project. Try not to make it some overblown concept that you need to build out with a team. Chances are anything that you're starting, you can probably do on your own, and it doesn't require a massive team. For instance, you're trying to build an app, maybe create a landing page and then gauge interest with your followers. See if people that you know would be interested in what you're trying to build before you build it. And then you'll get an idea. Okay, maybe I've got something here. Your closest friends will actually tell you whether what you're starting is something that you should continue starting. They'll be the most honest with you. So listen to them. Figure out what makes sense. Figure out whether what they're telling you is real, or maybe it's something that you should brush off to the side and continue with your project. You're going to have people that might tell you that you shouldn't do this. So it's important to try to kind of figure out whether people are just telling you to not do it because of some sort of jealousy, or maybe they're telling the truth and it might be something that's not going to work. Let your audience decide for you if you're starting projects. Of course, if you're building something from scratch, sometimes you just have to look at the fact that there are other success stories out there, and then you have to say, okay, this is already happening, so there's no reason why I can't start this. For instance, this community, well, before I started the community, I looked at and I participated in multiple other entrepreneur communities to figure out if this is something that could be successful and helpful for people. And then I realized, okay, there's definitely a market for it. So I might as well start this. I might as well grow this, because there's clearly a bunch of people out here that are looking for these kinds of communities. So I already knew going into it that this is successful. So my intent is to put a different content spin on this so that it's fresh and modern for people. So that's the intent. And I also want this to be extremely helpful for the members. So I'm taking a different approach, different mission, packaging it in a certain way so that what I'm starting on is unique in a sense. Very difficult to find something that's disruptive. And I'm looking at companies like Amazon, Apple, or Google. Those are companies that have created disruptive products and services. It's challenging to create something disruptive when you're just starting out the gate. It's almost best not to create something disruptive if you're getting going. Try to model the masters, and then as you get into it, as you get deep into your subject and your niche, you will find opportunities to create something that is disruptive. If you look at Amazon, I was watching a documentary with Jeff Bezos, and he started by delivering door to door, and that is not a disruptive approach to anything, but that's how he was delivering products that were ordered. He went door to door to deliver these products, and that's what competitors were doing as well. So it wasn't anything unique. So he started off creating products that he already knew or selling through e-commerce, and it was already through a way that was proven, and he managed to make it better. And you look at every company, they all started with something that was out there and they just made it better. They continued to innovate, and then some of the technologies that came out from these companies became disruptive. So that's what you have to look at in terms of starting, is not thinking, how can I disrupt, but thinking, how can I stand out and make my product better than everyone else, but also not trying to like think like a crazy mad person. You don't want to do that right off the bat. Start with very simple ideas, and those simple ideas could potentially grow. But when you're starting, it's almost best to just start, right? And if you want to start well, then part of it is starting with a fantastic structure and fantastic approach to your ideas. It's best not to start unless you have some sort of a clear idea, because your intent is to at least be doing something that you're interested in. Don't choose something because you think it's this get rich quick thing. If I find out that you're doing something because it's a way for you to make really quick money, it's going to be difficult for you to finish it or continue with it. And I find that it's probably not going to be successful. You're better off starting things that you actually like and products that you actually enjoy promoting. I don't know why people choose products that they are not passionate about. Try choosing things that you're interested in. If you have multiple things, like I've got multiple things that I really enjoy and I'm fascinated by, then you might just want to try them all, or start with one, figure out how it works, see if there's a market for it, grow it. And then once you've made it successful or automated, or you've got people working for you, you can move on to the next project. You almost have to have that initial discipline to say, here are the things I'm going to focus on, and I have to make this successful before I move on to the next, or I have to kill it before I move on to the next. The idea is, don't try to start a bunch of things, because then none of them are going to be successful, or you're going to give up on a bunch of them. Unless you go in with your intent thinking, I'm going to start a bunch of these and I know 9 out of the 10 are going to fail, but I'm going to find one that really fascinates me, and then I'm going to double down, triple down, quadruple down on that one idea, and that will be my start, and that will be my thing that I'm going to continue to push. So that's the thing about starting, is just trying to create that simple idea and not overthinking it too much. Actually, if you've got the idea, that's a great start. And then it's actually taking the idea and going with it. And if you took an hour out of your day every day to work on this idea that you want to start, then in a month, you could very well get your first customer. Or maybe in 2 months, you could get that first customer. Starting is half the battle, and then continuing is the other part of it. A lot of businesses are failing because when they start, they also give up majority of the time. So the idea is that you start, and then you realize deep down that you are continuing with this idea that you're passionate about, because you know that down the road you could get some really significant value from this, or you could really help others. And if you focus on it that way, then starting and continuing and completing or growing is going to be a lot easier. But if your intent is, I'm going to start, I'm going to grow this, and then we'll see if I want to continue with it, then that's kind of scary. You actually want to go into something and say, I know in the next year or two, it might not be a significant revenue generator, but I know that it's potentially quite valuable if I continue with this. In a year or 2 years, you should see some results that start coming in, I would think, but there's also that level of patience and dedication you have to put up front at the beginning for the first year or two. You might get very few results on your starting project. But if you're devoting a lot of your time, you can accelerate your growth. You can, get a team member to help you out, or get virtual assistants to help you grow quicker. The idea is if you're trying to be an entrepreneur, you cannot build this all by yourself. You need to figure out how you can bring on more and more people, and that's going to be important if you want to grow this. So think about the start, think about how you can implement this, and think about down the road how you can bring on others so that you can actually build the real business. If you're a small business owner, it's not too late to think about how you've started and then how you can continue and how you can continue with others so that maybe you can take yourself out of the technical side. Like the E-Myth by Michael Gerber is a great book on, being the technician, the manager, entrepreneur type individual, and figuring out who you want to be. You really want to be that entrepreneur that's overseeing, like the visionary. And when you start, you might not have that vision in mind, but as you're getting into it and you're putting more and more work on yourself, that's where having vision and having a strategy is going to be critical, because you want to take yourself out of the business technical stuff and then looking at it from an overview type aspect. I see a lot of people starting their businesses, and right now they're only thinking about freelancing. They're only thinking about clients. They're only thinking about getting that sale. But the best approach is to think about, how can I take myself out of this down the road? What kind of knowledge can I package and commoditize? So we're thinking, like, for instance, if you're a teacher, then maybe you have different teaching services that you can offer. 1 hour, 3 hours, 5 hours, and maybe start with that. So now you're actually creating packages, and then maybe you can train somebody else, an apprentice teacher, who can take on maybe that first hour or take on several of these packages for you. And then maybe you can add a few other intern teachers. And now you're actually just creating a team of teachers. And now you're like the principal watching over all of these teachers. You see how that works? Is you're almost thinking like a freelancer to start, but what if you thought about training and passing off your knowledge to others and creating a service platform where you have multiple people? That's what's going to be really valuable to you, because if you are working 12 hours a day with clients, and it's like 12 hours of client after client after client, you are so attached to your project that it's going to be very difficult for you to scale this up. Like, you're not going to be making more than maybe $100,000 a year, which isn't bad. If you're charging a really nice rate, and you could be making that kind of money, but you've hit the ceiling on this, right? Because your time is out. You're done after the day. You're exhausted. And being an entrepreneur is putting in that effort initially and figuring out, okay, what's working really well. But then it's also figuring out, how can I bring people on so that I am now overseeing this entire thing? I've created the start for myself, where I'm now doing a bunch of work for a bunch of clients, and my head is almost cut off because I'm trying to do all these different things. It's actually like having many different jobs. That's what freelancing is. It's many different jobs, which is great if you enjoy it. But imagine if you had a ton of clients, or you have more and more and more clients. Then how can you manage that? That's my question. How can you manage it? Well, it's very difficult. But if you bring somebody on, then you can scale this, and you can expand it. And exponential growth is what you want to go for. And I actually think that anything that you start is buildable into a business that you oversee. Anything that you start, whether it's a coaching practice or consulting practice, maybe people pay for your knowledge. Guarantee you, if you thought about your consulting or coaching or teaching package, you have this knowledge that you're holding back. Okay, you're holding it with yourself. You're not willing to give it out. Imagine if you decided today you're going to take all of your knowledge, you're going to package it all into this like course, and then you're going to teach apprentices so that they can do what you know, and they will gladly take less than what you make because they want the experience, and you get a cut of all the clients they work for. That's pretty nice, because not only are you educating others, which is so fantastic, in my corporate gig for marketing, I was teaching others my job, continually giving away tasks that I had learned because I wanted to take on more and more responsibility, but I realized I couldn't do it all. So I gave more and more stuff away. But to start, I took everything I could. So on starting even my corporate gig, all I did was just take everything. And and that's the same that a lot of people do in their businesses. They take on a lot of different stuff, and I don't blame them. I'm trying to do that right now as well. I'm trying to take on a lot of different stuff by myself. And then once I see some revenue and whatnot, enough revenue for me to get others on board, then I will do that and I'll build it out. And that's the same that you want to do. So once you've hit those 12-hour days with clients, that's where you probably want to say, okay, I want to bring somebody on. And it's maybe going to cost me. It's going to cost me X thousands per month, and that's fine. Because what's going to happen now is they can take on a bunch of clients, and I can focus on getting even more clients. And that's important. Or, you're maybe looking at teaching other apprentices so they can take on more and more clients. Do what you really love, but also don't beat yourself into the ground because you're trying to do all of this. And when you start, because this session's really about starting and whatnot, but it's also being able to survive. And if you start and then you run yourself into the ground, then that start is going to finish pretty quick, and it's not going to finish well. So you want to think in that visionary sense of bringing people in down the road. And actually, I was talking to some corporate people recently, and I was finding out that they were bringing on extra people to help out within their position. And the individual who was in the position, who had the experience and tenure, didn't want to teach the other individual, didn't want to educate the other individual. And that person held all the knowledge back. So what happened was there was additional stress on that individual not giving the stuff away, and then the person that was hired to help out is now frustrated and uncertain about what to do in the job, and that person is likely to leave. And these are fantastic employees, but there's this lack of delegation, and what happens is very difficult for somebody to take on other responsibilities when the start and the amount of responsibilities you get right off the bat, you keep them. And that's it. You just continue to do the same thing over and over and over again. Like, I'm going to take 20 clients this month, and I'm just going to work with them for the rest of my life over and over again. Not only can this get into this sort of mundane routine because you're not switching things up, but you're also not growing because you've already maxed out all of your hours. So now you're just going to continue to work for these people, and maybe you have a retainer or whatnot, but that's it. You're just going to focus on using yourself as the brand and the person that's going to do all the work. Well, then it's going to be very difficult for you to actually expand this project into a business. And that's what I really want for you, because we're talking about entrepreneur passion here. And the only way you can really stay passionate is if you've got the time at the end of the day to enjoy your family, your friends, or your other projects and whatnot. So when you start, you might feel like, okay, I'm going to take all this on right away, and that's fine. But figure out at what point do you start figuring who else can you bring on? Who else can you train? Who else can you help out so that they can help you, perhaps? Or who else can you train? Who else can you teach? Or what product can you create so that when you're not working, you're making money, and maybe enough money so that you can dial down the amount of clients you have? That's another approach. So when you're starting, hopefully you're not taking on too much. Hopefully you're thinking long-term, like, what kind of products can I create? You have all this knowledge, you might want to create a product along the way. Once you hit certain milestones, you might have learned some things. That's the point where you should be creating products. And the reason why is because you can sell those products. You have all these clients in your Rolodex, and you can sell them on your products. that helps, because maybe some people don't want to pay you for consulting, but they'd be happy to buy your course because it could save them some time. Figure out those courses that you can kind of build and send out there. That's going to be really valuable, because if you've got a course and you try to sell it, you can be making that kind of money overnight. You can be making it when you're sleeping. You just tell people, or you have it on an email campaign. Here's my course, and you can get a discount on it or whatnot. So that's how you can take your start and really turn it into a success story. Is to think about those products and how you can build them out. It can be really simple products. I mean, let's not try to get too complicated here. You can have a book and use that as a sales point. But in the case of starting, I think it's just important to realize that there are a bunch of success stories out there, and you're not there yet, but that's okay. You stick with your direction and what you're trying to do, you will get to that level. But it's not going to happen overnight. There's a ton of people that I look at as like marketing mentors. These are people that I absolutely admire. I love their work. I look at them as people that I can learn from. Okay, what's the process that person's doing? And then I'm like, okay, I just have to do that. I just have to start with that. It starts with, if you look at the videos of any successful person in your niche, look at what they've started. Look at their blog posts that they started with. Look at like a teacher or somebody in your area. Look at where they started. Guarantee you that their stuff is just as good as what you're producing right now. Like you're probably in the same boat. And what happened with their start was they decided to just start and keep going. And they just went full at it. And you can do the same thing. And then you'll get to where they are. There's a huge market in this world for whatever it is you're trying to offer. There's a group out there that wants what you're trying to offer. But of course, it takes you. So you just have to start, and then you just have to keep going. Just have to keep going. And that's probably the most difficult thing is continuing to keep going. But if you keep looking at, I wish that shiny object was mine, or I wish that person was who I am, then that becomes envy. And envy is really dangerous. Envy is very dangerous to your start, because what happens is you get discouraged. You say, their production value is fantastic. I can't get that kind of production value. There's just no way I can be as good as that. This start is never going to happen for me. You've already failed, because you're already judging the fact of things that you don't have. Now, for me right now, I'm filming on a webcam that's like, it's okay resolution. And there's like certain things that I wish that I had, that I will have. But right now, my intent is to just focus on advice and value, and right now that's the only thing I care about. And I'm not really too worried about things that are like whistles and bells and whatnot that make things better. I want to make whatever I'm saying better. And then once I can make what I'm saying better and continue to give that kind of value, and it's helping people grow, then maybe I'll consider improvements to make this even better or whatnot. But I'm not interested in dwelling on what I don't have. I'm more interested on giving what I have. That's what I want to do right now. And that's what you have to do when you're starting out. Give what you have and don't worry about what you don't, because there's a ton of people out there who are where you are at, and they didn't just start out a millionaire. Nobody started out a millionaire unless there's an inheritance or lottery that they've somehow received. But those people don't have the same kind of drive as an entrepreneur. So most people start at zero. They start at zero, and then they keep going, and they get to one, and then they get to two, and they get to three, and then they that's how it works in terms of the dollar value. Month number 1 is going to be painful. Month number 2 is going to be perhaps equally as painful. and you're going to have to deal with that. Like, it's going to be painful for me as well, and whatever I'm trying to create, and as I create more things. And if you like starting things as well, then you're going to continue to find out that the pain is at the beginning. And actually, that's the joy of it. If you can enjoy the pain of the start, then I can almost guarantee you will be successful. But if you don't like the pain of the start, now, like, that's probably what I'll call this video, because the pain of the start is probably the most difficult barrier to get over. It's a mental barrier. It's the reason why entrepreneurs give up and they go back to their jobs. And it's the reason why, I've kind of considered going back to a job, is that pain of the start. It's like this mental barrier, and it will knock you down. And you could be super passionate about something, but the pain could be enough, and the struggle could be enough, that you become discouraged and you exit out, and you become this exitpreneur type individual, where you want to create these massive, incredible things for people, but the minute something bad happens, the minute shit hits the fan, you exit and you go back to your regular, comfortable position. And the pain is probably the most important thing to get over. And you can get so numb to the pain and the struggle, then you'll get somewhere, guaranteed. So that's really what I wanted to talk about, is the pain, the struggle, but continuing to start is so important. And I really hope that people do that. They start projects and they keep going with them. So I'm going to end this now. And if people comment later on, then I'm happy to answer any questions, or if others are welcome to answer questions, and that's great. I'm really ecstatic about this community that we're building, and let's keep it going. Right now, I'm not really interested in doing any promotions or whatnot, and I'm going to try to just focus this on giving advice, answering questions, and then if people have additional questions about future Ask Trev segments, then I'd love the questions to come up, because what I will do, I will take a question and then I will deep dive into it. I'm going to start making the videos longer and longer, where I just go further and further into whatever questions come up. And the reason why I talked about Start today is because people are starting and they're trying to get clients, and there's this challenge that people find with the Start. So I'm really fascinated by taking any topics and deep diving into it. Love researching stuff. So marketing is kind of where I love talking about, but I also just love the idea of helping people promote their passions more than anything, growing their followers. So that's what I do with the videos, and any questions, I will answer them. So thanks again, everyone, for checking this out.